not to be confused with the Black Mountains. The Black Mountain is a mountain range in south and west Wales, straddling the county boundary between Carmarthenshire and Powys and forming the westernmost range of the Brecon Beacons National Park. Its highest point is Fan Brycheiniog at 802 meters at 2,631 feet. The Black Mountain also forms a part of the recently created Fforest Fawr Geopark. Name: the Black Mountain should not be confused with the Black Mountains in the east of the national park, nor with the 703 meters summit in the Black Mountains that is confusingly also called Black Mountain. In his description of a Black Mountain, the antiquarian John Leland refers to a massif extending between Carmarthen and Monmouthly, what is now considered to be the Brecon Beacons in the wider modern sense of the term, thus also including the Black Mountains and the intervening high ground of Fforest Fawr. The term Carmarthen Fans is sometimes used inaccurately to describe a large part of this massif, whereas it should be restricted to the peaks along the northern escarpment, west of the border with Powys, beyond which is Fan Brycheiniog. The term thus includes ft.The and Winelethrith, both of which lie to the west of Fan Foil and Fan Brycheiniog. Geology: the range stretches approximately from Ammanford in the southwest to Sennybridge in the northeast. The larger part of these hills is formed from Old Red Sandstone, though bands of Carboniferous limestone and of TWRCH sandstone are important landscape-forming rocks in the south and west of the range, owing to the greater resistance to erosion. The most resistant of all of the plateau beds, which form a protective cap over most of the range. They also form steep cliffs just below the edge of the escarpment. The rocks are of the Devonian, in common with the companion peaks of the Brecon Beacons to the east. The area was glaciated during the Ice Ages, and a number of fresh moraines are to be found beneath the spectacular north and east-facing sandstone scarps in the northeast of the range. Especially below Fanhere, there are smaller moraines lying immediately below the cliffs of Winelethrith and ft.The. The lakes below the escarpment of Lynwife and Vawr and Lynwife and Vark are also remnants of glacial action, having been created by other moraines blocking drainage by forming deep hollows below the cliffs. Archaeology: there are many surviving remains, especially prehistoric and Roman, in the area. There include the castras at Mynydbark and a Roman road crossing Fforest Fawr as San Helen. There are numerous menhirs, round barrows and several small stone circles. An especially famous circle occurs on the banks of the River Towy below Fanhere and is known as Cerrig Duon, or Black Stones. There is a standing stone outside the circle nearby, known as Mayanmoa, with two smaller stones forming a small avenue. There is also evidence of human settlements, hut circles and agriculture. Recent excavation of a cairn around Barrow on Fan Foil showed it to be of early Bronze Age in date, and there is a very similar unexcavated round Barrow on ft.The. The excavation at Fan Foil indicated that the moorland was well wooded in Bronze Age Britain owing to a warmer climate than at present, with much of the present moorland covered by hazel scrub with oak at lower heights. Most current moorland elsewhere in Britain was in a similar condition, and extensive Bronze Age remains have been found there too. Examples include Dartmoor, Exmoor, Bodmin Moor, much of the upland Pennines and upland Welsh moorland in the centre and north of the country. All such moorlands are treeless in their upper parts, in their current subarctic state. Drainage. The massif is drained by a number of rivers which flow down the southern dip slopes of the massif from its main ridge. In contrast, the northerly directed streams tend to be shorter and steeper. The upper parts of the range are largely moorland and covered with peat bog, some of which is degrading judging by the partly destroyed sections of peat bank near Llyn Waith and Fawr. The rivers Usk and Powys have their sources on the northern and eastern flanks of the range, whilst the smaller Lucker arises at the western end of the range. Significant right bank tributaries of the Powys, such as the river Giedd and the Ft.The, as well as the river Aman, a tributary of the Lucker, are the principal southerly directed watercourses. Two left bank tributaries of the river Towy, the river Senan and the Avon Sword, drain the northwestern slopes of the Black Mountain. The range is noted for its two large glacial lakes which sit directly below the main escarpment, being much larger than the small lake of similar origin which occurs below Pen Waith and Llyn Waith and Fawr. Llyn Waith and Fawr is the smaller and more westerly of two natural lakes within the Black Mountain. It is enclosed within a rock hollow formed as a result of glacial action during the Ice Ages. It is about 500 yards long and 200 yards wide, and roughly oriented east-west. It is drained by the Avon Sword, which cuts through a glacial moraine which in part forms a natural dam. A small artificial dam was constructed in the 1930s to divert some of its waters to boost Llanelli's water supply. Llyn Waith and Fawr is associated with the Lady of the Lake legend. The lake can easily be reached by foot from the car park on the waterboard access road near Llandewsant. Although the road to the car park is poorly signposted and in very poor condition for car travel. Llyn Waith and Fawr. The Lake Llyn Waith and Fawr, a lake of the large peak, which lies below Fan Brycheiniog towards the eastern end of the mountain. It is of similar glacial origin to its westerly neighbor, but is slightly larger. It is about 600 yards long and 200 yards wide, being roughly oriented north-south. It is drained by a stream known as Nantwy Llyn, whose waters flow into the river Towy. The surface of Llyn Waith and Fawr lies at about 1,980 feet to 605 meters above sea level. The lake can be reached on foot by an approximately 1.7-mile walk across the moor from the Minster Castle to Abercroft Road, where there is a small space for cars to park. There is another small car park a short distance away to the south and next to the same road at the end of another footpath to the lake. Access. Parts of the massif are over 5 kilometers or over 3 miles from the nearest public road. Indeed, those roads are mostly very minor single-track roads with a few passing places, making the center of the range even more inaccessible. There are several small car parks on the minor roads crossing the range. Virtually the entire massif consists of land mapped as open country and hence legally accessible to the public on foot under the provisions of the Countryside and Rights of Way Act 2000. In addition, the range is crossed from north to south by a number of long bridleways which may be used by mountain bikers and horse riders, though long sections of them are very rough and indistinct. The Beacons Way traverses the range roughly from east to west. Increased use of certain sections of path by walkers in recent years has resulted in accelerated erosion, a problem exacerbated by the sometimes thin, gravelly soils and the high rainfall, and has prompted repairs by the Brecon Beacons National Park Authority. There are numerous peat bogs on the high and middle ground, although some are bridged by stone pavements. There is a well-graded stone staircase which carries the Beacons Way path from Llanw Fan Fawr up the escarpment to Fan Brycheiniog in the centre of the range. Wildlife. There are numerous different species of bird in the area, and they include the red kite, common buzzard, kestrel, carrion crow, common raven, and skylark, to name a few of the most obvious residents. The red kite was previously restricted to this in adjoining areas in South Wales such as Mynydmalan owing to persecution by gamekeepers in the rest of the country, but has since been introduced widely in southern Britain, such as the Chilterns. The kestrel and buzzard are widely distributed, but the raven is restricted to the higher mountains. Cultural associations. The Black Mountain is generally considered to be one of the wildest regions of Wales and is associated with numerous myths such as the Arthurian legend of the Lady of the Lake and Twrch. More recent events are commemorated in prose and verse, e.g. For Them Is to Heaven, written after a tragedy played out on these moors in May 1904. Carmarthenshire on its southeastern margin is known locally as the Sleeping Giant, after the appearance of its profile from Cwm Tawey to the south.